A head of state resigns. 4 musicians cross a street. A naval fleet burns. Unrelated events, separated by centuries, yet bound by one thing: the calendar. History is constantly moving forward, of course, but if you look closely at the timeline of human progress, August 8th stands out as a dense nexus point where the established rules of the world rewritten themselves in a matter of hours. Plot world-altering events across the year, and you'll find a statistical anomaly in late summer. August 8th holds a massive concentration of historical milestones. This specific spike breaks down into 3 domains: the battlefield, political power, and culture. You don't need to memorize an entire timeline to understand how the modern world was built. You just have to dissect what happens when the calendar strikes 8/8. We start on the battlefield. This single date has repeatedly hosted the sudden collapse of empires and the rapid redrawing of global borders. In 1588, the Spanish Armada was the most terrifying naval force on Earth. On August 8th, English ships engaged them at the Battle of Gravelines, scattering the fleet into a brutal storm. That single naval engagement broke Spain's dominance and cleared the ocean for the British Empire. Fast forward to 1918. World War I had been locked in a grinding, muddy stalemate for years. Then came August 8th, the start of the Battle of Amiens. Allied forces tore a 15-mile hole through German lines, a sudden rupture that finally triggered the end of the Great War. Exactly 27 years later, the axis of power snapped again. As Japan was reeling from the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, the Soviet Union declared war on August 8, 1945, flooding over 1 million troops into Manchuria and forcing a rapid conclusion to World War II. These 3 events share a common consequence. The map of the world did not gradually evolve in the wake of these battles. On these specific dates, it was erased and redrawn. But geography is only half the equation. The infrastructure of human authority, the laws and governments that actually rule us, also has a habit of fracturing on this day. On August 8, 1942, Mohandas Gandhi launched the Quit India movement. He demanded complete independence from British rule, setting off mass protests and strikes that served as a fatal, systemic blow to the legitimacy of global colonialism. This chart shows the London Charter, signed by the US, UK, Soviet Union, and France on August 8, 1945. It pooled 4 sovereign nations into a single international tribunal. This framework bypassed traditional sovereignty to prosecute individual human beings directly. This produced a scene that had never existed before: the highest-ranking leaders of a fallen regime sitting in a dock, stripped of their immunity, facing judgment under a brand-new system of international human rights law. Yet, even as international laws are born on this day, domestic trust collapses. On August 8, 1974, Richard Nixon became the first U.S. president to announce his resignation, retreating from the Oval Office in the face of certain impeachment. And on August 8, 1990, the post-war legal order was fractured again when Iraq officially annexed Kuwait, locking the Middle East into a cycle of conflict that would last for decades. On this day, human authority operates on a hard reset. Old empires are dismantled, and the world is forced to write entirely new rules. History isn't strictly driven by treaties and troop movements. Cultural evolution writes the story just as effectively. Look at August 8, 1786. 2 men climbed the snowy summit of Mont Blanc on the French-Italian border. That single ascent ignited the era of mountaineering, transforming towering peaks from terrifying obstacles into frontiers of human exploration. On this day in 1969, a photographer stood on a stepladder at a London zebra crossing and snapped the cover photo for the Beatles' Abbey Road album, creating an aesthetic touchstone for global pop culture. On August 8, 1988, the Chicago Cubs played the first night game in the history of Wrigley Field. The installation of those lights marked a definitive technological shift in how mass entertainment was consumed. And exactly 2 decades later, the 2008 Beijing Olympics kicked off on 8/8/08, serving as a massive, synchronized broadcast that signaled a shift in global cultural and economic power to the East. These milestones prove that August 8th defines what humanity considers iconic, providing the aesthetic and physical boundaries of what we believe is possible. There is no cosmic force coordinating these events. The universe isn't conspiring to make this specific Tuesday in August more special than the rest of the calendar. Human beings are just constantly generating history. Isolating a single date is like taking a geological core sample from a glacier. It lets us cut through the noise of the timeline and see the compressed, sudden layers of human progress stacked directly on top of each other. This chart compares a smooth, gradual upward curve against the abrupt jumps we see in the August 8th data. Within this specific window of time, progress looks less like a steady climb and more like a series of distinct step functions. The world you wake up to on August 7th is rarely the same world you go to sleep in on August 8th. Our history isn't always a slow, predictable process. Often it is a series of explosive, overnight reinventions.